Welcome to the Personal Tanya, day 23. We are taking on chapter 12, the first part on today's date. It's the 14th day of Teves, and we're taking on game-changing inspirations from the daily Tanya in about 5 minutes. Today's big idea is the struggling Jew. The idea is, what we learn in Tanya today is that you are always in control and that you're never, ever a victim. You see, after the Tanya's introduced us to the three general categories of Jews, already the two general categories of Jews. There's the tzaddik and the rasha. Tzaddik is the successful Jew. That's the Jew, obviously, with regards to the epic battle of titans, the battle of souls that rages within us. We have a godly soul and an animal soul, and they're fighting. So the tzaddik is the successful Jew. That's the Jew whose godly soul has dominated, has tamed his animal soul, and therefore he never ever sins, not in thought, speech, or action. On the converse is the rasha, the failing Jew. The failing Jew is the one whose godly soul has not tamed the animal soul, and the animal soul still rebels. Once in a while, some more, some less. But today, we're taking on the middle level. It's the Beinoni, which is the struggling Jew. The struggling Jew is the Jew that's most relevant to us, at least in terms of an aspiration. Because this Jew is the one who's a bit of a mix between the tzaddik, the successful Jew, and the rasha, the failing Jew. Because on the outside, the Beinoni, the struggling Jew, is just like the tzaddik. On the outside, he doesn't sin. On a practical level, he never allows expression of his animal soul through thought, speech, or action. The garments of his soul are always pure, and he only allows the expression of the godly soul on a practical level. But on an essential level, on an internal level, he's just like the rasha in the sense that he still struggles with his animal. Internally, there's a struggle, but practically, he is able to remain constantly vigilant. How does he do this? Only because of the foundational principle of the human being is that the mind rules over the heart. The mayach shalit al halev, our brain, rules over our heart, and we are naturally disposed in such a manner that our minds are able to actually control our feelings. And therefore, because he's able to meditate about values that are important to him. He meditates about God, for example, and the greatness of God and the importance of being devoted and expressive of God. Therefore, he is able to reach a state of vigilance where he's not expressing his animal soul. So he's able to overcome, which basically means, friends, very important concept. It means that even if you were raised in a situation which was imperfect. Maybe your family was imperfect. Maybe you had mentors or teachers that might have abused you in ways that were uncomfortable and ways that might have wounded you. Nevertheless, what the Tanya is teaching us today is that you're never ever a victim. You have the power to meditate your way to controlling your emotions, at least in terms of a practical level of not giving those negative emotions expression in thought, speech, and action. That's a very empowering thought, realizing that we're always in control and that we're never, ever a victim. The Tanya tells us something fascinating, that the Beinoni has never sinned and never will sin. It seems like it cuts out most of us who might have sinned once in our past, or maybe sometime in the future. But what it means is it's not a blanket zero-sum game. What really is going on over here, as the Tanya is telling us, is that compared to where you are right now, he's never sinned and he never will sin. I mean, think of a person that's deeply in love in a relationship. Infidelity is not anything which they could even consider. Could it be that they might have been infidel? They might have been inappropriate maybe in a previous or sometime in the future. Could be. But right now, in terms of the love that they're sharing with each other, infidelity is not even an option. And that's what the Beinoni is. Right now, where he's holding vis-a-vis his past and his future, it's almost like it's inconceivable that he might have ever sinned or will sin, even though he practically might have. The closing point that the Tanya tells us today is that internally, the Beinoni can actually also reach the level of a tzaddik. So even though internally he's really like a rasha, he's the failing Jew because he's struggling. It's only on a practical level that he's behaving like a tzaddik. He actually does reach a level of a tzaddik, of the perfect Jew, of the successful Jew, while he's meditating in prayer and study. Because at those times when he's focused on his godly soul, Torah study and prayer, saying the Shema, it's then that he's truly able to manifest control over his emotions as well. And therefore, because his mind is controlling his emotions, he's not even thinking or wanting any expression of his animal soul, and that's why he's able to reach even internally at certain periods of the day a state of when he's a little bit like a tzaddik. Now, this might sound a little depressing to think that a Beinoni, a struggling Jew, is the one that never gives expression to his thought, speech, and action. But I want to encourage you to consider that it's not all or nothing. There are 613 commandments in the Torah, and maybe you might struggle, you might fail with certain mitzvahs, but with other mitzvahs, you might be the struggling Jew. You might actually just be the struggling Jew with certain mitzvahs, where, for example, when it comes to infidelity, maybe you might be struggling within, but on a practical level, you're controlling yourself. In the same way, you might have another mitzvah where you're not actually struggling. In that mitzvah, you're maybe failing. You're actually failing. You might not be keeping kosher, but when it comes to Shabbos, you're struggling and you're managing it, or vice versa. So if we compartmentalize our spirituality, we might feel a sense of empowerment, realizing that I am already a Beinoni in certain parts of my life. And in other parts of my life, I'm not yet a Beinoni. That's a wrap. Let's try to apply. You can do this.